It's time for another book review. So this time is I'm reviewing Substantial Evidence by Bill Hubbard, a whistleblower's true tale of corruption, death, and justice. This I took a special interest in this particular book because this it details the antics. It's probably the easiest way to put it. The antics of the Lubbock District Attorney Travis Ware, and Travis Ware was in office in the early '90s in Lubbock, Texas. And one of the reasons I took a particular interest in this was I was living in Lubbock as all this was going down, unbeknownst to me at the time. I remember I was a young college student and I would hear little bits of this in the local news, but I had no clue of just how insane this case was. In 1995, I had a political science teacher that was teaching Texas government that he had written, I believe, his doctorate on this case. And part of our work was to read his paper that he had, his thesis on the Travis Ware corruption case. And it was insane. And I remember him even telling us, and this was back when I was a young college student and really didn't pay as much attention to this stuff as I probably should have. And I remember him even telling us in class that he said, if this isn't this insane, is if this was in a book, you as fiction, you wouldn't believe it. He said, if this is all real, this is all documented, this is not made up. And what happened is it turns out that Travis Ware was the district attorney, and I believe all of this case broke in about fall of 1992. And the police officer, Bill Hubbard, refused to go along with something. I believe there was something that he was not willing to go along with, but as a result, the whole police department turned on him, and he was fired and threatened with, and I believe prosecuted, or they tried to prosecute him. And the whole book is about his fight against the Lubbock Police Department, and specifically the corrupt DA, Travis Ware. And Travis Ware also was working in conjunction with a medical examiner, and I'll see if I can find his name in here or a picture of him. The medical examiner was equally corrupt and like swapping heads on bodies and falsifying medical exams and death reports. It's insane. And if you're a student of corruption and conspiracy and that sort of thing, this is definitely a fascinating read, because to know this is a case that is, you can check out a lot of this stuff still. Travis Ware did not lose his law license over that. He was not disbarred over this, which will shock you if you read this in its entirety. That will shock you that this guy is still practicing law in Lubbock, Texas. And what will shock you even more is I don't believe he ever did any time for this. So I think the medical examiner, wound up having to serve time for some of his doings here. But the fascinating thing to me in the broader picture of a lot of my other book reviews and some of the other things I've covered is I'm inclined to think that this is the tip of a bigger iceberg that was sticking up in Lubbock, Texas. This is indicative of the kind of a corrupt scene where this guy was obviously protected by people higher up than him. Now, Mr. Hubbard doesn't really get into that, but he just is just the facts man, sticks to his case, and this is all about him fighting and then ultimately, thankfully, winning his case against the DA. And then basically having to relocate not too long after that because of just how insane everything was against him. So very, very interesting case. And especially, this is one of those very real nuts and bolts corruption cases that you can, all this is easily verifiable, all public record. And then the craziest part of it is that the DA is still practicing law out in Lubbock to this day, as far as I know. Even including, I think at one point, brandishing a machine gun to some of the local news people to scare them off. Insane stuff. And like I said, I was living in Lubbock as a lot of this was unfolding, so I caught little bits of it, but reading his account of what was happening behind the scenes is even more insane than what made the local news. So definitely, if you're a student of these things, of political corruption and just conspiracy in general, conspiracy in the true legal sense, this is a really fascinating read. And also, just as a student of human nature, the other thing I find really interesting about these kinds of accounts is when you have a guy that is obviously as corrupt as this guy was, how the non-corrupt parties go along with this guy and protect him and participate in this at the low level, that kind of the support level, as it were, to help this guy along. So there's things like that's always fascinated me, how corrupt players like that can get the cooperation of other non-corrupt actors, and how that works. That's always fascinated me. Not that I'm trying to find a way into a corrupt system, but I've brushed up against enough of foolishness in my life that I'm always amazed by the makeup of the kind of person that goes along with that, especially when there's no obvious financial reward to that. Why would you participate in that? So, Substantial Evidence by Bill Hubbard, really, really good book, really fascinating case to dig into, and it will definitely. This is one of those I've dog-eared some of the pages and Googled this all through while I was reading it, and I was amazed at how. I kept checking up on some of these guys and some of the details in this. And it's amazing how Mr. Ware, Mr. Travis Ware, has definitely done a bang-up job of keeping a lot of this off the internet. So you can find some of it, but he has gone to great lengths to purge this off the internet. So I'm not going to put his name in the title of the video or anywhere tagged in it, because I have a feeling that would cause this to be censored, because this dude is still a legal presence in Lubbock. So there you go. Substantial Evidence by Bill Hubbard. Fascinating case of corruption from the early 90s in Lubbock, Texas.